My brother got a car for graduating. I got a bill for rent. I left without a word but left a note. Stay with me as I tell you how my own family betrayed me. I left the house at 4:30 in the morning on a Tuesday carrying nothing but a duffel bag and 24 years of quiet resentment. When my brother graduated from college, he got a brand new truck. When I turned 24, I got handed a bill for rent. That same night, as my family popped champagne for Malcolm's big achievement, my father looked me straight in the eye and said, "You need to start paying $900 a month if you want to keep staying here." It wasn't a discussion, it was a verdict, and I was supposed to accept it like I had accepted everything else they'd thrown at me without complaint. But instead of staying quiet, I left them a note. Not a goodbye, but a receipt itemizing everything they had taken from me. And I vanished before the sun came up. They thought they knew who Camille Richardson was, the quiet daughter, the one who never caused trouble, the one who always stayed, until she broke. They were about to find out how wrong they had been. I should have known something was coming when Mama asked me to set out the fine china for Sunday dinner. In our house, that china only came out for two reasons: Christmas and bad news. My name is Camille Richardson, and I was 24 years old when my world shattered like a vase hitting tile. But the cracks had been forming for years, little fractures hidden behind a picture-perfect family portrait. Growing up in the Richardson household meant knowing how to read between the lines. My father Curtis gave orders dressed up as advice. My mother Loretta was the queen of loaded silence. And my brother Malcolm? He could have set the whole kitchen on fire, and they would have blamed me for not turning off the stove. I remember the exact moment I realized I wasn't like Malcolm in my parents' eyes. I was 16. He was 18. He had taken Dad's pickup on a joyride with some friends and crashed it into a neighbor's fence 2 streets over. When Daddy found out, he didn't raise his voice. Instead, he turned to me with those sharp eyes and said, "You knew about this, didn't you?" I didn't. I'd been in my room working on a term paper. But somehow, his mistake became my failure to prevent it. That was the first rule of the Richardson house: when Malcolm messed up, it was my fault. The second rule: image was everything. While I worked 2 jobs and studied online to save up for school, Malcolm lived in a college dorm fully paid for by our parents. When folks in the neighborhood asked about us, Mama would beam and say, "Malcolm's in business school and Camille's still figuring things out." Figuring things out, as if juggling 60-hour work weeks and coursework was just me being indecisive. As if I was out here on vacation instead of grinding to survive. But the third rule was the cruelest: love had terms and conditions. And I hadn't met any. By the time Malcolm's graduation rolled around, I had become a ghost in my own home. I stayed quiet, kept my grades up, and shrunk my dreams down to the size of a sock drawer. I had started a small online shop selling handcrafted jewelry, nothing huge, but it was something I built on my own. One night at dinner, I mentioned I was thinking of expanding it. Daddy looked up from his tablet and smirked, "Still playing with beads and wire? When you gonna get serious, Camille?" I wanted to show him my reviews, my sales numbers, my savings. But Malcolm chose that moment to announce he'd made the dean's list. Just like that, the conversation moved on, as always. Then came the Sunday dinner that changed everything. Malcolm sat next to Daddy, spinning stories from his final semester. Mama hung on to every word like it was gospel. I sat across from them, slowly cutting my pot roast into tiny pieces, wondering if anyone would even notice if I never came back to the table. "So, Malcolm," Daddy said, setting down his wine glass with that fake gravitas he always used when pretending to be generous. "Your mother and I have decided on your graduation gift." Malcolm's face lit up. "Y'all didn't have to get me anything. The degree is enough." But his voice had that tilt, he knew something was coming. Something big. Mama clasped her hands like she was watching a proposal. "Oh, Curtis, should we tell him?" "Why not?" Curtis leaned in. Son, we're giving you the Highlander. Wait, the new one? Malcolm's voice cracked. Yep. Pearl white. Leather interior. Fully loaded. The fork slipped from my hand and clinked against the plate. A brand new SUV for Malcolm. The same Malcolm who had totaled a car, racked up speeding tickets, and never held a job. Malcolm's eyes watered. Thank you, Dad. I don't even know what to say. You earned it. You made us proud. I cleared my throat. That's great, Malcolm. Really. Congratulations. And I meant it. I did. But I couldn't help myself. So what happens to the old car? Mama and Daddy exchanged that look, the one that meant trouble. Well, Mama started slowly. Camille, we've been meaning to talk to you about that. Something sank in my stomach. Now that Malcolm's graduating, Daddy said, leaning back like a CEO in his office chair, and you're not really living at home much anymore. What do you mean? I interrupted, though I already knew. You're 24, he said. It's time you start contributing more. We've decided you need to start paying rent. $900 due on the first Sunday of each month. The silence was so thick I could hear the antique clock ticking behind me. $900. That was more than half of what I made at both jobs. I don't understand, I said. Malcolm stayed here rent-free until he left, even during breaks he was in school. Daddy snapped, I'm in school too, online. That's not the same thing and you know it. And just like that, I was being punished for working, for being responsible, for trying to survive without their help. When do you want this to start? Next Sunday, he said. First payment. And Camille, he added with that final tone he always used, this isn't up for discussion. I turned to Mama, hoping for a lifeline. She stared at her nails. Your father's right, baby. It's time. I looked at Malcolm. He was staring at his lap, not saying a word. Maybe there was guilt there. Maybe not. $900, I repeated, my voice calm. To new beginnings, Daddy said, raising his glass, to Malcolm's future and Camille's new responsibilities. They clinked glasses. I smiled politely, stood up, and began clearing the dishes. But while I stood at the sink scrubbing their celebration off the good china, something inside me cracked wide open. I stood at that kitchen sink, up to my elbows in sudsy water, while laughter floated in from the dining room. The smell of pot roast lingered. Mama's favorite gospel playlist hummed in the background. But all I could hear was a small voice in my head saying, you don't have to live like this. I had always been the quiet one, the peacemaker, the one who kept her head down and did what she was told. But standing there in that moment, I realized something terrifying and liberating. Being good had gotten me nothing. Not respect. Not love. Not even a used car. That night I lay awake in bed doing math. $900 for rent, plus groceries, transportation, phone bill. I ran the numbers again and again. It didn't work. Not unless I gave up saving. Not unless I gave up everything I had been slowly building for myself. Unless I made a different choice. I wasn't the type to make scenes. I wasn't the daughter who slammed doors or shouted at family dinners. But that night, with my duffel bag under the bed and my heart pounding like a drum, I started planning my escape. By Monday morning I was all smiles again. I poured coffee for Mama, kissed her cheek, and told Daddy I'd look over my new responsibilities that evening. But inside, I was preparing to vanish. I checked bus schedules in secret, counted the cash in my savings envelope twice, and made a list of what mattered. It surprised me how short that list really was. My laptop. My grandmother's small gold locket. A set of leather-bound journals she left behind, hidden at the back of my closet. Items that didn't have monetary value, but carried my future and my roots. The journals had belonged to Grandma Marlene Richardson. Everyone thought they were lost after she passed, but I had found them in her attic 2 summers ago. I hadn't told anyone. I had a feeling Daddy would have misplaced them for good. I didn't read them back then, but I remembered seeing clipped newspaper articles, receipts, handwritten letters, and even legal documents tucked inside. That feeling I'd had when I first found them returned now. Something important was buried in those pages. On Tuesday I worked both shifts. At the bookstore I shelved self-help paperbacks and smiled at customers. At the bistro I served sweet tea and Cobb salads with an aching back and tired feet. But every second I was alone, I was plotting. By Wednesday I began packing just the essentials. My laptop. Clean jeans. T-shirts. My charger. The locket. The journals. I kept everything hidden beneath my bed, tucked into the old army duffel Malcolm had left behind years ago. I didn't even feel bad using it. By Thursday I started writing the letter. It wasn't a sob story. I didn't beg for understanding. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I wrote a ledger, a full accounting of everything I had done and given to that household and everything I had endured in return. Dear family, it began. Then came the list. All the times I'd babysat Malcolm's dog for free. All the holidays I cooked while Malcolm slept in. Every grocery trip I paid for when bills were tight. Every moment I was talked over, dismissed, ignored. Every dream I'd shared that was laughed at or never acknowledged. And at the bottom, I wrote out an actual number, a total of what I had contributed financially over the years. The number was higher than I expected. Much higher. Enough to make my hands tremble. I ended it with one line. You won't find me unless I want to be found. No signature. I didn't need one. On Friday I gave notice at both jobs, told them I was relocating and transferring schools. My managers were surprised and sorry to see me go. Honestly, that felt more genuine than anything my family had said in months. By Saturday night I had packed the last of my things. At dinner I pushed food around my plate while Malcolm bragged about his job interviews. Daddy was giving him tips on salary negotiations. Mama invited me to go shopping for his graduation outfit. I can't, I said. I have to work. Of course you do, Daddy muttered behind his newspaper. Work, work, work. That's all you ever do, Camille. You ought to live a little. If only he knew. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark and listened to the house breathe, Daddy's snores down the hall, the soft static of Mama's TV, the bass from Malcolm's music leaking through the vents. At 3:15 I slipped out of bed, put on jeans and a hoodie, laced up my sneakers, slung the duffel over my shoulder. I paused one last time and looked around the room. The pink walls Mama painted when I was 7 still clashed with the old brown dresser I inherited from Aunt Ruth. It never felt like mine. I crept downstairs, stepping carefully over the squeaky board by the landing. I left the letter on the kitchen counter next to the coffee pot Mama always used and stepped outside into the quiet dawn. The street light flickered. The neighborhood was still asleep. I didn't look back. The bus station was mostly empty, just a yawning janitor and a woman rocking 2 crying babies in a stroller. I paid cash for a ticket to a city 6 hours away, somewhere my parents had never cared enough to visit. When the bus pulled out of the station, I watched my old neighborhood fade into the shadows behind me. I should have felt afraid. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt free. I planned my destination carefully. My godmother Lorraine Matthews lived in a quiet college town 3 states away. I hadn't seen her since I was 10, but I remembered her laugh, her independence, and how Daddy always called her trouble. That was enough for me to trust her. Lorraine had been Grandma Marlene's best friend. After some kind of falling out with my parents, her name was erased from our family's story. But I remembered the way Grandma used to light up whenever Lorraine visited, like someone finally understood her. The bus ride took 10 hours. I stared out the window most of the way, my reflection a ghost against the blur of trees and towns. At one point I turned on my phone and sent a single text. "Hi Lorraine, this is Camille Richardson. I'm on my way to see you. I'll explain when I get there." Then I powered off the phone. I didn't want to see the incoming calls, the angry voicemails, the fake concern. Not yet. Lorraine was waiting at the station, even though I hadn't told her which bus I was on. She hadn't changed much. Her short silver curls were tucked beneath a bright scarf, her glasses perched low on her nose, and her stance radiated "don't mess with me" energy. "Camille," she said as if no time had passed. "Baby, you look like you've been through it." "Hi Lorraine. I'm sorry for showing up like this." "No you're not, and you don't need to be. Come on, let's get you settled." Her house was the exact opposite of my parents', colorful and alive. Art on every wall. Books stacked on every surface. No fancy furniture or stiff formality, just warmth. She made tea. Toast. Gave me a blanket. Asked no questions until I was ready. When I finally told her everything, the rent demand, the favoritism, the letter, I expected judgment. Instead, she shook her head slowly. "Your father's been a controlling man since high school. I'm just sorry it took you this long to see it. You really don't like him, do you?" She gave a dry chuckle. "Like him? No, baby, I never did. But that's not your burden to carry anymore." She led me upstairs to a small room that smelled faintly of lavender and old paper. "You can stay as long as you need," she said, "but I've got one rule. What's that? No hiding. You left that house for a reason. Don't disappear into another one. You're alive now. Start acting like it." I cried myself to sleep that night, but for the first time in years I woke up rested. I didn't flinch at the sound of footsteps in the hall. I didn't dread what waited in the kitchen. 3 days later Lorraine took me to her favorite coffee shop downtown, a cozy bookstore cafe called the Cedar Cup, full of mismatched chairs and cinnamon-scented shelves. She introduced me to the owner, Miss Gloria, a woman with paint-streaked hands and a voice like sweet molasses. I had an interview the next day. "It's not glamorous work," Gloria said, "but it's honest and we're like family here." Family. That word had never felt real until then. That evening I sat at Lorraine's kitchen table and opened Grandma Marlene's journals. They weren't just diaries, they were ledgers too. Contracts, receipts, names and notes scribbled in neat cursive and paperclipped to legal-looking documents. "Find anything interesting?" Lorraine asked, peering over my shoulder. "Not sure yet. There's a lot in here, financial stuff, property notes." She took one gently, flipping through the pages like someone reading scripture. "Your grandmother didn't trust your father, and she had good reason." Over the next hour, Lorraine told me everything. How Daddy had only married Mama because the Richardson name carried weight in legal circles. How he slowly maneuvered his way into controlling the family's real estate investment accounts and legal matters. "He pushed your mom out of her own family's company," Lorraine said, "and when Marlene got suspicious, he tried to paint her as senile." "But she was sharp," I whispered, still flipping pages. "Too sharp for him. Which is why she set up this." Lorraine slid a sealed envelope toward me. Inside was a notarized trust document dated 2.5 years ago, just months before Grandma passed. My eyes widened. "This has my name on it. Camille Ava Richardson." "She left it all to you," Lorraine said. "College fund, real estate dividends, a business seat, account, everything she had that she could legally separate from your father. But I never got it. Because your father forged documents after you had that breakdown senior year. Remember the hospital stay? I nodded. 2 weeks in a mental health center for anxiety and burnout. He used your temporary medical guardianship to claim power of attorney. Then he redirected the funds. My throat tightened. So legally, he stole from me? Yes, Lorraine said. But he was smart. Made it look clean, until now. I stared down at the documents. Every sleepless night. Every overdraft fee. Every insult from Daddy telling me to get serious about my future while he was pocketing my future the whole time. There's more, she said, handing me another file. It was an enrollment form for Malcolm's school, with my signature. Except it wasn't my handwriting. He used to mimic my signature as a joke, I muttered. Not a joke anymore. My chest burned. Malcolm knew. He had to. He had taken my inheritance and gone to college on it. Is there anything I can do? I asked, my voice trembling. Yes, Lorraine said. I know a lawyer who specializes in financial abuse. His name is Marcus Reed. If anyone can fix this, it's him. That night I stared at the ceiling and tried to process it all. My whole life I had blamed myself. Thought maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. But the truth was, I'd been robbed. And I was done staying quiet. The next morning Lorraine drove me to Marcus Reed's office. He was younger than I expected, mid-40s maybe, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and a firm but calm presence that made me feel like I was finally safe. He flipped through the documents with quiet focus. Cases like this are more common than you'd think, he said. Abuse of power of attorney, especially within families, happens all the time. The good news, your grandmother was very precise. She documented everything. What's the bad news? I asked. It won't be easy, Marcus said. Your father's not going to go down without a fight. Are you prepared for that? I thought about all the times I had been silenced, all the years I gave up everything just to keep peace. I'm ready, I said. Let him come. Marcus nodded. Good. Let's get started. While he filed official complaints and began pulling bank records, I settled into my new job at the Cedar Cup. Miss Gloria taught me how to run the register, stock new titles, and even help with window displays. I found myself smiling more than I had in years. That's when the messages started. First, Mama, Camille, please call, we're so worried, let's talk, we love you. Then Daddy, this foolishness has gone far enough, come home and stop embarrassing us. Then Malcolm, what did you put in that letter? Dad's furious, Mama's crying, just call me. I didn't answer. But I watched. I saw the carefully curated family image unravel. Mama posted some vague, urgent family matter plea on Facebook. Daddy began calling my former bosses. He even texted one of my old classmates. Then came the headline, local grad arrested for DUI outside hardware store. Malcolm's mugshot looked nothing like the smiling photos in our living room. His eyes were swollen, his lips cracked. He looked like someone who had lost the script. Interesting timing, Lorraine said, sipping her tea. Sounds like the house of cards is falling. She was right. Without me there to carry the guilt, the shame, the burden of their dysfunction, everything was falling apart. 2 weeks after I left home, a woman named Shandanda messaged me through my old account. Hey, this is probably weird, but I'm Malcolm's ex. I heard what's happening with your family. Can we meet? I think there's stuff you need to know. I hesitated but agreed to meet at a diner in a neighboring town. Shandanda was soft-spoken, with tight curls pulled into a puff and sharp alert eyes. She stirred her coffee slowly. I dated Malcolm for about a year. Things ended messy. But I remember him talking about you, especially when he drank. What did he say? She pulled out her phone. I know this sounds wild, but I recorded some of our conversations. He was manipulative. I needed to protect myself. There's one in particular I think you should hear. She tapped play. Malcolm's voice was slurred but clear. Dad says that money was supposed to go to the one who'd make something of himself. He says Camille would just waste it. But she works harder than I ever have. She deserves it. I don't know how to make it right. My chest tightened. Shandanda watched me carefully. I'm sorry, she said. But I thought you should know the truth. Thank you, I whispered. Can I get a copy of that? She nodded and airdropped it to me. For what it's worth, she added, I don't think he's evil. Just spineless. Your dad, he's the real puppet master. I drove home in silence. I thought about the years I spent apologizing for existing, for not being enough or being too much. Now I had evidence. Now I had a voice. 3 weeks later Marcus called. We're in, he said. The court has approved a motion to freeze the trust funds pending investigation. Your father's being served today. I was at work when the call came. I had to sit on a stool to keep from collapsing. All those years of powerlessness, and now the law was finally on my side. That evening Lorraine and I sat on the porch with glasses of lemonade, watching the sunset. This is just the beginning, she said. You know he's going to come hard. I hope he does, I replied. I'm not that girl who used to wash dishes while they laughed at the table. At exactly 10:30, my phone rang. Unknown number. This is Officer Kennedy from the sheriff's office. We have Malcolm Richardson in custody. He asked us to call his sister. My stomach sank. What happened? DUI. Possession. He drove through the front window of Tanner's Hardware. No one was hurt. No. But he's asking for you. Lorraine drove me to the county jail. I hadn't expected to see him like that, hair matted, eyes hollow, wearing a baggy orange jumpsuit. When he saw me he nearly cried. Camille, thank God. I didn't know who else to call. I sat down across from him. Where's Daddy? Refused to come. Said I needed to learn my lesson. Mama tried, but he blocked her. Of course he did. I'm sorry, Malcolm whispered. About the money. About all of it. Do you even understand what you did? I asked. He nodded. I do now. I knew it wasn't right, but Dad told me you wouldn't know what to do with that kind of responsibility. He made it sound like it was justified. That you just waste it. And you believed him? I wanted to. Because it was easier than standing up to him. I sat there staring at the boy who used to build Legos with me, who used to push me on the tire swing. I never even wanted business school, he whispered. I wanted to be a carpenter, start a furniture shop. But Dad, he told me I owed him and he made it sound like the money was his to give. I believed him. Not his excuses, but his pain. Now what? He asked. Now, I said, we all deal with the consequences. 2 days after Malcolm's arrest, his mugshot hit the local news. Prominent businessman's son crashed his car into storefront, arrested for DUI. It didn't take long for folks to start digging. My father's name came up in online comments. People speculated about his influence, his family, and the hypocrisy of his board membership at Southern Crest Holdings, the largest firm in our city. By the end of that week, he was forced to resign. I found out from Miss Gloria, who overheard a customer at the bookstore whispering about it. Apparently there were already quiet investigations into his financial dealings. The fraud against me was just the tip. That same evening, Mama called me. Camille, she breathed when I picked up. Thank God. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Fragile. Defeated. Can we meet, baby, please? There's so much I never told you. I agreed, cautiously. We met at a diner in a town halfway between us. She looked thinner, worn down like someone who hadn't been sleeping or eating right in weeks. You look good, she said, with tears in her eyes. Healthy? I am, I told her, for the first time in years. She reached into her purse and pulled out a box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me, all in Grandma Marlene's handwriting. She wrote to you every month, Mama said, voice cracking, after she moved to the assisted living home. Birthday cards, holiday letters. She never stopped. But Daddy didn't give them to me, I finished for her. He said they'd distract you, she whispered. That they'd upset you. That it was better to keep you focused on school. I believed him. I'm so sorry. I opened one letter at random. It was dated just months before Grandma passed. She told me how proud she was of my resilience, how much she loved me, how she believed in my business. Even mentioned seeing my handmade bracelets online. She knew, I whispered. She believed in me. She did, Mama said. She always did. There was one final letter in the box. It was sealed. On the front, in Grandma's handwriting, only open this if Curtis tries to take what belongs to you. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside she wrote. If you are reading this, Camille, then the man I feared has shown his true colors. Your father was never worthy of this family's trust. He married your mother to control her inheritance. He has manipulated and stolen with a smile for decades. But you are the future of this family. The trust fund is yours. And so are the properties, the shares, the pieces of this legacy he tried to keep from you. Do not let him win. Fight for yourself. You are stronger than he ever gave you credit for. I love you. Grandma Marlene. I looked up at Mama, who was wiping her eyes. I knew about the letter, she said. But not what it said. I'm filing for divorce. I've already contacted my own lawyer. Mama. Let me finish. I failed you. I stood by while Curtis tore down everything you were trying to build. I let him tell me I wasn't smart enough to manage the business or the money. But I'm done living in fear. I want to take my life back. We sat in that booth for hours, talking, crying, unpacking years of silence. Her apology didn't fix everything. But it was a start. 6 weeks after I left, I came back, not to stay, not to make peace, but to finish what I started. A late spring storm had knocked out power at Lorraine's house, and with repairs delayed, we decided the timing was right. I needed closure. Marcus met us at the Richardson home. He brought legal documents, financial records, printed evidence. Your father has 2 choices, he said. Settle or go to court. Either way, his grip is broken. I knocked on the front door for the first time in over a month. Daddy answered, looking older and grayer, but his eyes still tried to burn through me. Well, he said. The runaway returns. I came to talk. He let me in. The house smelled of old coffee and stale air. The furniture was dusty. The flowers in Mama's favorite vases were gone. Your mother moved out, he said flatly. She's staying with her sister. Filed for divorce. I know. I've talked to her. He raised an eyebrow. Of course. She's turned against me. You all have. No, Daddy. You did that all by yourself. I sat on the couch and pulled out the envelope. I know everything. About the trust. The forged documents. The power of attorney you abused. The lies. He didn't even flinch. You're being dramatic. You don't know what the real world is like. I gave you everything. You gave Malcolm everything, I snapped. You gave me trauma. We stared at each other in silence. Then he laughed. So what do you want? The money? You got your precious lawyer. You got your sympathy online. Go ahead. Take it all. I don't want your money. I want an apology. In writing. To me and Mama. I want you to get help. He blinked. Help? You need it. You lost everything because you were too scared to admit you were wrong. He didn't respond. But just as I reached the door, he said quietly. You were always the smart one. Smarter than me. That scared me. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was the closest to truth I'd ever heard from him. Later that summer, he signed the settlement. The trust funds were returned to me. He agreed to community service and avoided jail. He even started therapy. Whether it would help, that was his problem, not mine. 2 years passed. I stood on a stage at Morgan State University, speaking to a room packed with students. The banner behind me read, Second Chances, Finding Your Power After Family Betrayal. My name is Camille Richardson. I am the co-founder of a nonprofit that helps young adults reclaim their rights after family-based financial abuse. We've helped over 400 people since we launched. Lorraine runs operations. Marcus is our lead legal advisor. Miss Gloria volunteers part-time. The startup money came from Grandma's trust. The backbone, that came from me. After one workshop, a young woman approached me crying. My parents opened credit cards in my name when I was 16, she said. I thought I'd never get out. But your story, it gave me hope. I handed her a card. You are not alone. And you can win. As for Malcolm, he completed rehab. He's now a carpenter's apprentice. We talk every few weeks, carefully, honestly. He's paying me back what he took, not because I asked, but because he needs to, for himself. Mama lives in a small apartment. She takes art classes now. She laughs more. She shows up. The Richardson House. It's now transitional housing for women leaving abusive homes, Mama's idea. We renamed it the Marlene House. As for Daddy, I don't know where he is. And I'm not looking. One day I visited Grandma Marlene's grave and read her final letter out loud beneath the tree beside her headstone. You were right, I whispered. I didn't disappear. I finally became visible. A year later, my memoir was published, The Girl Who Disappeared and the Woman Who Came Back. It became a bestseller. Not because it was perfect, but because it was true. And because millions of people out there have been told, like I was, that their story doesn't matter. I'm here to say, it does. You do. And the brightest kind of revenge is shining so loud they can't ignore you anymore. What if the people who raised you were the very ones stealing your future? Sometimes disappearing is not weakness, it's the first step toward being truly seen. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own strength, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because healing is possible. And your voice, it matters. Always.